You just looked?
I don't think we are. Yeah.
Did you just hit it? It's all good. All right, well, we're in here. If you're just now joining us, welcome back to the 10-Second Runoff powered by Culture Media with your host, Joe Mitchell, producer, Magic Mikey Shiaza. Hop up on there. Our guy, Brogan Bourgeois. We are brought to you by 7-3 Distilling. Bywater Bourbon is our favorite. It's my go-to. Let us know where you're watching from, what you're sipping on. But they bring you – go ahead and put me on the screen, Mikey, just me. We got the Gentilly Gin, St. Rock Vodka. We got the Irish Channel Whiskey, Black Rum. My phone's on, so that's super unprofessional, isn't it? God, we're off to a rough start today. But look, it is what it is. We're here talking college football. Kalen DeBoer got hired as the head coach at Alabama since the last time we talked. Brogan, big Alabama guy. I know you said you love the hire. Look, a lot of transfers out and everything. I think I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter about people being unhappy with that, or not necessarily unhappy, but not over the moon about it. I think that's crazy. I want to hear your thoughts as a Alabama fan.
I just have a stronger opinion because it's happening to my team. Like, if this was happening to Michigan post-national championship, I'd be like, I don't care. Like, go get your bag. Go wherever you want to go. If you want to go back home, go be closer to your family. Like, I get all that. But since it's happened to Bama, it's tough. Texas is throwing money out there like it's nothing. So it is what it is. It's the two big ones that hurt were Caleb Downs and Isaiah Bond. Bond to Texas, Caleb Downs to Ohio State. They're not great, but end of this week and this weekend, we finally got a couple coming to Alabama. It's two of Washington's linemen and their wide receiver 4. So, they're far from replacing Proctor and Bond, but it's a starting stone, and we have guys on deck that hadn't even got on the field that we can't rule out yet. So it is what it is. It's the new age of football. Welcome to the NIL. What we grew up watching, what our listeners probably grew up watching, is never going to come back. So it's adapt and move on. We can complain about all we want. We have no say in how the NCAA chooses to run college football. So it is what it is. Just got to keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Look, whenever you have a head coach leave, especially a coach like Nick Saban, who leaves a program, you're going to see guys transfer out. Guys commit to coaches for the most part. I know they commit to the university, and that's what it's supposed to be. But in reality, guys commit to coaches. If you see a high-profile coach leave any major university, you're going to see transfers out. Obviously, having guys like Isaiah Bond, Caleb Downs, those guys leave, that hurts. But I think Kalen DeBoer is a slam dunk hire. I said it since before he got hired. I said my 1 and 2 if I was an Alabama fan would be some order of Dan Lanning and Kalen DeBoer. Anybody who says anything different, I'm happy to hear you out, but I'm very, very comfortable saying I think that's a great hire. Look, you saw what he did at Sioux Falls. Saw what he did at Indiana. He got Indiana to 10 wins when he was there with Michael Penix Jr. Went back to Fresno State. Jake Haener was the number 1 quarterback in the whole Division I in terms of passing yards in back-to-back seasons. Then he goes to Washington. They're a 2-win team before he gets there, and in 2 seasons takes him to a national championship. It's unbelievable what he's been able to do. He's won at every single level. I don't think you could have had a better hire if you're Alabama. I really don't. And I know that you had guys leave, and it may feel like a sting. And I know all of the opposing fan bases in the SEC are loving it because it looks like Tuscaloosa's on fire right now. But I think in the long run, this was a really, really good hire from them. And that pains me to say because I'm the furthest thing from an Alabama fan. So,
yeah, I'm cool about it. The one that kind of hurt the most, that wasn't Alabama related, but due to our move, was Arizona's coach heading to Washington. I really wanted
Jedd
him
Fisch
to stay with Arizona because I loved that team. Kind of watching it Pac-12 after dark, like that. For some reason, they found themselves always playing at that. And there was just a lot to root for going forward with Arizona. I had them as like sneaking into my top 12 next year. And now, I don't know. He's going to Washington. He's going to coach. He's going to do a great job there. But I really liked everything that Arizona team's kind of stood for. So that's kind of tough.
Yeah. How about the players over there being, not even borderline, just straight up pissed off that Jedd Fisch left. You got Noah Fafita, you got McMillan. They're both saying they're staying at Arizona. You had guys vocal on X, I guess you'd call it now because it's not Twitter anymore, whatever. But you got guys vocal on there talking about how, the players are supposed to be committed and buy into the program and all that, but the coach gets to leave. Well, guess what? The coach is an employee, right?
Yeah.
Like, players get the transfer and they can go chase money and all that kind of stuff. Coaches can do the same. There's buyouts, all that kind of stuff. So, whatever. I understand where they're coming from. I think Jedd Fisch, this is a step up for him. He's no longer in the I guess it would have been the Pac-12 had Washington stayed, but Big Ten now. He's a Big Ten head coach, which is a big move. I think that's a great. I'm not trying to say hire. Great job acceptance? Is that the word I'm looking for him?
I can get behind that.
We'll see what happens. I don't know how Washington's going to do in the Big Ten next year. I think Oregon's going to do better out of the four of the Pac-12 teams that are heading over there. I think Oregon's probably best position to succeed out of those four. You got Ohio State, Michigan still. Penn State's really, really good. Iowa has that great defense. We'll see what they can do. What are your thoughts on Jedd Fisch heading over to Washington? What's he going to look like in 2023 or 2024 rather?
I like it. I mean, he's kind of getting thrown into a rough spot with all the transfers and guys that Washington had and how much they're losing to the league and then losing their head coach. So I don't think he's going to put up a year like DeBoer and Penix and Odunze and all those boys did. So he kind of short into the stick. It's a good transition for him. I completely agree with that. And then jumping off the deep end, going straight to the Big Ten is not going to be no easy thing to go and do. So there's going to be learning curves for, I think, that whole organization. So it'll be tough. I think the Big Ten's this year the Pac-12 was crazy competitive, which is awesome. But it's a different type of football in the Big Ten. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of scheme he rolls into that conference with and how them and Oregon kind of stack up, because those are the two powerhouses from the Pac-12 that are going in. And I think everybody's given Oregon the early nod as being kind of the one or two in that conference.
Yeah. With Jedd Fisch, you look at his history. He's a guy who spent the majority of his coaching career in the NFL all across the league. Now he's heading into the Big Ten, which is probably one of the closer styles to the NFL that you'll see in college football in terms of really, really good defense, big offensive and defensive lines, run-heavy football. But you also saw at Arizona, he's more than capable of putting together an offense who can throw the ball around and be really successful doing it. So I'm interested to see what that looks like. I don't necessarily have any predictions off top of what he's going to look like in year one, but very interested to see what he does with Washington. I think it's a step down from Kalen DeBoer, honestly, with you, but I'm interested nonetheless. All right, what else?
Yeah, and staying with that, the Big Ten, most kind of comparable to the NFL. I think that's kind of why the Ohio State OC hire makes sense with Bob. I'm not a big Bob fan personally. That's just an Alabama deal. But he did get us a national championship with Mac Jones, who of the four that I was there for, he was probably the worst quarterback of them. But he ran a damn good offense with what he had, and while Mac is in the NFL and whatever that goes to say. But I think that makes sense, him coming back to Ohio State. I think that's a good Ohio State hire to get him, but I don't know if it looks good on Bob's personal brand. But I think he's going to do a decent job up at Ohio State as well with Ryan Day.
Well, he's got some new additions. I'll tell you that much. Just picked up Quinshon Judkins. They got Caleb Downs out of Alabama. Julian Sayin out of the transfer portal from Alabama. He's the number one quarterback in the portal right now, or was when he got picked up. They're on fire, man. They're on fire. They ran into a couple issues this year. Kyle McCord wasn't the flashy quarterback that C.J. Stroud was. They said, we'll go get Julian Sayin then. That's not me saying he's going to start next year, but there's going to be a competition. And look, Quinshon Judkins with Travion Henderson up there, they're going to be a really, really good 1-2 punch. Adding Caleb Downs to that backfield, they're going to be able to compete with Iowa, Penn State, Michigan in terms of defensive backfields. So Ohio State's tired of losing that big game at the end of the year and not winning the Big Ten championship. So I'm very, very intrigued to see if there's a step up there, if they can close out the season with that extra win. and where that puts them in a 12-team format. Obviously, this year or this past year, had there been a 12-team format, they would have been in. But I think they're positioning themselves to take that step up and really find themselves at the top of the Big Ten again.
Agreed.
Oh man, how about Florida? Have you been keeping up with what's going on at Florida? They're now under investigation. Jaden Rashada, his recruitment last year coming into this previous season. Are you familiar with that?
Not too much, honestly. So I'm kind of learning with the crew that's watching.
Okay. So Jaden Rashada was the number 2 quarterback out of high school last year. And he was originally committed to Miami. He flipped his commitment from Miami. There was not even speculation. He straight up got a $13 million NIL deal from a independent collective. It fell through. Not entirely sure what all that means, that NIL deal fell through, but he did not get the $13 million. Decommitted from Florida, did not go back to Miami, ended up at Arizona State. So now the NCAA is investigating Florida for that whole recruitment process, whether there was some sort of, I don't know. But they got a quarterback off of Miami's, signing class, and then didn't even end up signing him themselves. So kind of a blow to be under investigation for a kid that you didn't even sign. But if you're throwing around $13 million or falsely promising it, it's, you're going to get investigated.
Yeah, that just seems illegal outside of all football realms. So that makes sense. It's kind of rough. Yeah, that's crazy. I saw they got somebody off the portal today, though, on Twitter. Another Alabama transfer. He was between LSU and Florida and chose Florida. I think he was a DB. But that's tough. I mean, I want Billy Napier to do well at Florida. I loved him at ULL or UL now. And then he's got to Florida, and it's just been tough sledding. And that would have been really cool if that quarterback would have stayed. He would have been all that he was made out to be, and it was completely legal. But the man can't catch a break, honestly.
I don't think he ever coached at Louisville.
No, ULL, Louisiana Lafayette.
Yeah, I know. You said UL. I know, but he corrected.
I said ULL, and then didn't they just change it? University of Louisiana.
Yeah, but that's BS, bro. They're not the University of Louisiana.
Okay,
that's like Texas A&M. That's like Texas A&M calling themselves the Texas Aggies. Like, no, there's one Texas school, or there's like a Texas flagship, and it is the Longhorns. Whether you like that or not, that's the case. Louisiana is, that's going to be the Louisiana Lafayette Raging Cajuns forever. Well, that's just my opinion. I hate when they went
to just the University of Louisiana, because it's the ULL Raging Cajuns. That's the Fun Belt. I love it.
And the problem is, you give them an inch, they take a mile. Because before they were the Louisiana Lafayette Raging Cajuns, they were the University of South Louisiana. They were USL.
Yeah.
And so, they moved towards, well, we're just going to claim Louisiana. We'll call ourselves Lafayette down here. And then now they're just Louisiana. You're not. You're just not. You're just not. Same way Texas A&M is Texas A&M and not the Texas Aggies. But, whatever.
Yeah. No.
I don't know. If you can't tell, I have a serious problem with it.
No. And when they flipped, I was like, no. Like, because the University of Louisiana, then it should say Louisiana State University. That's LSU. That's Baton Rouge. That's the capital. That's the capital's team. That's Louisiana's team. ULL, just keep your second L, keep your Raging Cajuns, and everybody will be okay.
The best thing about that was during we're now in basketball season, obviously, and I want to who was it? Nichols State. It was another smaller Louisiana team who beat ULL in basketball, and they tweeted out a picture of the final score, and they said, "Here's that extra L y'all keep forgetting to put."
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I love it.
That's phenomenal. If that's from Nichols State, the Harvard of the South, Thibodaux, Louisiana, go Colonels.
No,
both parents graduates of Nichols State University, so I will ride or die the Colonels with anything that they do.
There you go. So that's Florida. Billy Napier, look, in all honesty, Florida probably has – I don't know the exact strength of schedule. I don't know what the rankings look like in terms of strength of schedule. But if I had to guess, it's a top 3 strength of schedule in the country. Their schedule next year is ridiculous. What you got? This coming season, yeah, 2024. It's unbelievable. They have one of the hardest schedules in the entire nation. And Billy Napier is number one. There you go. So it's the number one strength of schedule in the nation. And Billy Napier is coming off a couple rough years in a row. Is he going to be on the hot seat in 2024?
Yeah. And it just sucks that he will be. People were speculating that he'd be on the hot seat this year.
Yeah.
With how everything shook out. So undeniably, yes, he will. He will if he doesn't put at least a 500 record.
Yeah.
But that's going to be hard, having the hardest damn schedule in the country. Like that's.
Mikey, do you have a schedule? Do you have that Florida schedule up? Yeah, come up here on the screen too, because I want to talk through that for a second, because it's really brutal.
All right, so they play Miami, then they go to Samford, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, UCF, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State. That's brutal.
Dude!
Yeah.
I have them 0-5.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah, that's a rough slate.
Like, on face value, Georgia, like, if we want to, we'll do it backwards. We'll run it backwards. Okay, so you said Florida State
So
to end it.
they got Miami.
Yeah, let's just.
Yeah.
Okay, this will be fun. Let's do this. Miami, what are we thinking?
I'm gonna go L.
L.
I'm leaning L. Okay, so 0-1.
It's in Gainesville, if that makes any difference.
Yeah, I think it does. The swamp is cursed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think it does.
you know what? I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna put them at a win.
All right.
I'm still gonna go L. I do think it's a
Gainesville,
good game.
that's
I do think it's a good game, but I'm still gonna go L.
I agree. I think it'll be a dog fight, though. Next up, they got Samford. That's
Dub,
a dub.
yeah.
That's a win. It's a FCS school.
Then they got Texas A&M at home.
L.
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 Then after that, they go to Mississippi State.
That's up in the air.
Win.
Could go either way, in my opinion.
I'm giving them the win on that one.
Then they go home versus UCF. They're playing all the Florida schools.
Yeah, which is good for
Yeah.
recruiting. If you can sweep Florida,
sweep
you'll
them,
be okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Home against UCF,
I'll give them a win over UCF.
I'll give them a win, but that's not an easy win.
No.
Okay. Then after that, they go to Tennessee.
Loss.
Loss.
Nope.
Then they play Kentucky at home.
I'll go up in
I'm
the
gonna
air
give it to
again.
them.
I'll go up in the air again, but I'm gonna lean loss.
Yeah. Then they play Georgia on a neutral field in Jacksonville.
Beat down.
Beat down. Then they go to Texas.
Beat down.
Then they play LSU in Gainesville.
Loss.
Then they play
Loss.
Ole Miss in Gainesville.
Loss.
Then they go to
Loss.
Florida State.
Loss. Yeah.
Loss.
So I mean, it's
So you have them losing
So
7
we-
straight to end the season, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be really, really tough for them to. I think if they get bowl eligible next year, Billy's job should be safe. Like that is a rough schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that.
Yeah, I got them at 4-7, and we said 3 of their wins are literal toss-ups.
Yeah.
Like, holy hell! Yeah, I agree. If you go 500, he gets the extension. It doesn't have to be a 10-year guy, but he should. That's tough, and that's what you got to tell your university, your boosters, and all that. Like going into it, like, look, we have the worst schedule, and if you take, I don't know, a fan from the Big Ten, and they look at this, they're giving us 4 at most. So
Yeah.
if we go 6-5, 6-6, you got to be happy with that, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And here's the thing too is, list through those teams again. You got Texas, you got LSU, you got Ole Miss, you got Georgia, Tennessee. Okay. Florida State's in there. So you're playing 6 teams that are 3 that are for sure like being considered for the 12-team playoff, and then 3 that are kind of outsiders for it. Dude, if your 6 losses are teams that end up in the playoff or, in the top 20, I mean, it is what it is, man. And look, that's not the Florida standard, between 2000, between In 06 and 08, they won 2 national championships and haven't won it since. But so I know that the standard there is go win 8-9 games, compete for an SC championship, all that kind of stuff. It's not happening in 2024. You might be a couple years out from that. You might be several years out from that. But give this dude some grace, man. He's playing 6 teams that have a shot at the playoff in 2024. That's rough.
Yeah.
That one's really, really rough.
That's tough.
Let's stay.
I'm looking forward to following them next year.
Oh, yeah. And the funny thing is most of the country probably won't be by November because they'll have a couple losses and have one of the hardest schedules coming up. What I will say about Florida is that's a team that could have, I don't know, we could be entering November. Who do they open up against? Miami. They get UCF, which could be a good one. Mississippi State could be a good one. So your mic's off.
Their first November game is Georgia. So they go Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State to end the season.
So they might not win a game in November, but you could be going into November with already 2 or 3 losses and kind of lose the national attention.
Maybe 4.
Yeah, so there you go. Could have 4 losses there. But the point is still a talented roster, still in the top half of college football in terms of talent.
And we don't really know what's going to happen with this investigation. That's what led us to talk to this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, will he get suspended? Will Napier get suspended or something like that? Like, we don't know. That could affect their schedule even more with whatever the outcome of this investigation is.
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make here is Florida could find themselves behind the sticks in terms of record already heading into November, but they're a talented enough roster where they could ruin somebody's season. And it's going to look like a really bad loss to whoever they find a win against, but that's a team to watch.
Yeah.
Those games down the stretch there, maybe not so much from a Florida fan's perspective, but if you're a fan of any of those teams that have to play them in November, that's a tricky team because they could have 4 or 5 losses by that point and still have a really talented roster. So that's interesting to keep an eye on. Let's stay in the state of Florida here for a second. Miami just had a tight end get granted his 9th year of eligibility, Cam McCormick.
Somebody get this man a LinkedIn.
That's what I'm saying.
Good gravy.
Yeah, it's like half the country needs car insurance. Can this man not sell it to him? Like, he's been there since the 40s.
Yeah, dude, I saw it. Yeah, we put up the graphic of who else was in his recruiting class. It was like Mecole Hardman. He got a couple Super Bowls by now, and like this dude's still playing. Like, and it sucks. Like that, 3 of his seasons were season-ending injuries. Like that's tough, man. Like,
look,
you should be able to play, but you're 26?
Yeah, man.
I think he's 26 years old, dude. That's a grown man. He'll line up against a couple 18-year-olds come game 1.
He's got a doctorate. He's a doctor.
Yeah, dude, you have a doctorate. Go doctor. Like, go teach at Miami. Go do something. That is absurd. I mean, way to get a free education. I'm all behind that and get your master's and doctorate degrees, but
I'm not.
Holy hell.
I'm actually not. No, and straight up. And here's the thing. Like, you've had 3 season-ending injuries. I wish nothing but the best for Cam McCormick. I want to say that first and foremost. We wouldn't be able to sit here and talk college football if it wasn't for these guys playing college football. But that being said, you've had 3 season-ending injuries. How is it that you can keep going to school for free if you're not able, whether it's you're not good, and I'm not saying he's not good enough. He played the last 2 years. But if your body physically has not been able to play college football, how are you still getting free tuition based off of playing college football? And if it's 1 or 2, I get that. 3, bro.
Yeah.
I'm 24 years old, okay, and look, I know we're young and we're trying to cover college football and all that kind of stuff. So if you're in the comments, yeah, I'm 24. It is what it is. I was in middle school when this kid was being recruited. He's still playing college football.
I am also 24, as the boys know, and like that's a perspective where you're like, holy hell.
Yeah, man.
That's nuts.
Dude, we were sophomores in high school when this guy committed out to Miami.
Jesus. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I've been out of school for a couple of years now. I also dropped out as a freshman, so I've been out of school for a while. But oh well. Any last thoughts
I went
there?
through extra school as well, and I didn't get it paid for, so like I get I mean I get it, dude. You love the game, keep playing if you physically can, but I don't know if your body can. Mentally, I'm glad you're able to, but physically, it's looking this chips are stacked against you right now, and I guess at the end of the day, he's taking the spot of a kid who's who's trying to make it as well, and who has better potential, I guess, at this point, but.
And that's
I mean, at this
right?
point, I hope he goes to the league. Like, I hope he gets drafted. Like, I hope it pays off. Like, really, I really do. But I don't think it will because no team's taking a risk on signing a middle-aged man.
Dude, he's gonna be 6 years older than some rookies. Like,
yeah,
right. Well, he's gonna be older than. I mean, who's he older than right now? Is he older than? I don't know. What are some names to throw out there? Lamar's pretty young. Joe Burrow's pretty young. Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a 50-50 shot he's older than half the skill position guys in the playoffs right now.
Well, who are some big names in the 2017 class? Chase Young. Chase Young was 2017. This guy committed a year before Chase Young got to Ohio State. That's a wild thought.
That is.
It's a wild thought. Okay. Again, no hate towards Cam McCormick. We're just talking about the situation. Cam, I know you're not seeing this, but regardless, the point is no hate towards that guy. It's a weird situation that I'm not a fan of.
Agreed.
Let's go back to the Big Ten here for a second. Michigan, Jim Harbaugh. Earlier in the week 2 days ago was pretty much a lock to be the next head coach for the Los Angeles Chargers, leaving people to wonder who would take over the Michigan spot. That kind of, I'm not going to say it broke down. He's still projected to get that job, but it lost a little bit of traction. Now, all of a sudden, he's scheduled a second meeting with the Atlanta Falcons. Bill Belichik is, the odds-on favorite to land that job. Regardless, it begs the question of who's going to take over at Michigan if Jim Harbaugh leaves. What are your thoughts?
And I've thought about this, and I have no idea. Like the interim guy that stepped in, his name's slipping my mind during the second part of his suspension. But, I mean, he had the guys going. He coached a good game, I think, against that big win was Penn State. And then was Jim there for the Ohio State game? No. No, so the interim guy they put in there got 2 good wins, and it seemed like the locker room was behind him as well. So, I mean, if you're going to stay on that path, I guess give him a shot for a year. It's the worst case scenario, it doesn't pan out. You can go and get anybody or Michigan. So I really have no idea. I don't think Jim's going to stay. I think he's going to take that Charger spot. Everybody kind of said that throughout this season, that he was going to the NFL, whether he wins or loses, and I still think that. But I got no feel on that. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. There's a little smoke about Brian Kelly being hired at Michigan. I don't see that happening. To be honest with you. Brian Kelly said LSU was going to be his last stop, but it would make sense. Midwest guy, his family's from
Not
Indiana.
Not after the recruiting absolute tear that BK's on right now.
Look, I agree with you. I'm just saying that was the smoke. So I don't know. I don't have a tell on that. But if there was a name that I saw thrown around, it was him. So we'll see what happens. I think that's a no, but that is the name that I've heard. So.
Okay. I hope not. He's got LSU where they need to be as a program. So, and especially like I said, the recruiting tear and what he's doing in the portal. And bringing the other coaches in to help with LSU's existing coaching staff, it's phenomenal. It's insane what he's doing. So I'd hate to see him walk to Michigan after everything he's done this offseason.
I will say that. I don't understand why more universities don't do what Brian Kelly's doing right now. What he's done, bringing in his whole assistant coaching staff, I don't know all the names off the top of my head, but bringing in the whole assistant coaching staff feels like is but has some sort of relation to LSU, whether they played there or coached there. Point is, they know the program. They know the program. They know what makes it go. They've been successful there in certain times in the past, all at different periods. Frank Wilson, for example, one of the best recruiters in the country, really. Joe Sloan, you can say the same about him. Corey Raymond was there when Jamal Adams and Grant Delpit and Christian Fulton and Derek Stingley and all those guys were there. So he's bringing in guys who know the program and have experience at LSU, and that's just something to me that fuels success. I don't know why more programs don't do that.
Yeah.
And I was really not just surprised, but I'm very interested to see what that's going to look like, if that's an uptick specifically defensively, because they were atrocious last year on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah.
So interested to see what that looks like. Don't know why more coaches don't do it.
Yeah, I feel like the word culture is thrown around a lot when it refers to a program or a locker room. But I mean, it's just if you get an old head who played there, and especially if they won, if they won during their tenure as a player, they love to come back and kind of replace that feeling with doing it as a coach, mentoring other guys. So I think doing what BK's doing and bringing guys that have either coached in a successful level at LSU or played for a successful level at LSU, keeping that culture and kind of that mindset allows the program to do better as a whole.
Yeah. All right, that's for the most part, I think that's all the talking points I had for today. We kind of sped past Kalen DeBoer at Alabama and haven't gotten to spend a ton of time there. I know I did mention the fact that a lot of other SEC schools, fan bases rather, are kind of like celebrating the fact that Kalen DeBoer is having a lot of guys transfer out right now. I think he is extremely well suited for this position. And I think there's a comparison that can be made. Not necessarily a comparison, it's more contrasting these coaches. But Josh Heupel got to Tennessee in a worse situation than Kalen DeBoer got to Alabama and got them competitive really, really quickly with a great offense, a manageable back end of the country, but manageable defense. And all of a sudden, Tennessee was a contender as recent as one season ago. Kalen DeBoer is a better head coach than Josh Heupel and is coming into a better situation with more funding, more boosters, more NIL backing, better facilities. So I don't understand this perspective, especially from Tennessee fans, from Florida fans. Florida's a really, really good job, but not to the point that Alabama is. South Carolina guys with Shane Beamer. Like, you talk to any South Carolina fan, they love Shane Beamer. Well, Kalen DeBoer is a better coach. Like, I don't understand the perspective of a lot of SEC fans who are, throwing a celebration because Alabama's having guys leave the transfer portal. I think Kalen DeBoer is a slam dunk hire, and I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, and I think once the portal opens up in the spring, it's going to be open season. Like, it's a really, really, really narrow field to pick from right now because you're only looking at guys who are eligible to hit the transfer portal with coaching staff, head coaching staff leaving on unnoticed time. So the only ones we have, like Alabama has pick froms right now, are Arizona, Washington, and that's it. So it is what it is. It's tough, like getting on Twitter, being an Alabama fan, and just everybody rooting for everything that's going wrong. And it's not even things going wrong. It's just how the portal and how college football works right now. So I'm happy with the hire. I love the hire. That everybody, like, he played for a national championship a month ago, or not even a month ago, a couple weeks ago. So I like it. It's going to take time for him to rebuild, but you're following Nick Saban. It is what it is. So all of my opinions are very, very kind of, they're extremely biased. They're not flipped. They're not like on the pulse of everybody in the country. So I'm cool with it. I think we're starting to get a couple more guys from Washington, and it'll be okay. And then once spring ball ends and the portal opens, I think right at the end of that, we'll see what happens. Because everybody will hit the portal again, and we'll have a new 20 guys to talk about that were 4 or 5 stars that are leaving.
Yeah. Well, Brogan, got a question for you in the comments. It says, overall, as a Bama fan, are you disappointed with the change? I'll kind of lead that question a little bit further. I know early on in the coaching search, you said you were really hoping to see Mike Norvell or Lane Kiffin. I know you said you're happy. You're happy with Kalen DeBoer, but are you disappointed in the route Alabama took?
No, I'm not. You saw the writing on the walls early, like on Twitter. Like Dan Lanning put up like a hype video that he was staying. You could keep me split with Joe. I don't know how much I want to talk about it, but Dan Lanning put up a hype video. Steve Sarkisian put up like a hype video that he was staying. Mike Norvell tweeted out 4 or 5 times about the recruits he was getting and how he felt. So no, I'm not mad at it. Norvell, I think, was the best coach out of those, but I also had a gut feeling that he wasn't going to leave. Not after everything's been fighting for, being undefeated, missing the playoff. Like, he has unfinished business at Florida State. And then Lane Kiffin, that was just I just like Lane. He's a funny guy. At Bama, Joey Freshwater, like, he has a nickname. He has a persona there. So I like him as the next guy. Who gets a little older, a little more tenure. But overall, I like him. So from our pick, you can't be mad at it.
So that's the thing with Lane, and that's the thing with Lane Kiffin. And honestly, I don't think Ole Miss is a great job in terms of, the backing, the alumni support, the, NIL backing, the facilities, all that kind of stuff. Is it okay? Yeah, of course. It's an SEC West job, or not West anymore, but it's an SEC job at a team that has been competitive but not really won anything. Haven't won the SEC since, I don't even remember. They claimed 2003, but they straight up didn't win it that year. The thing about Lane Kiffin to me is, I like what you said about him taking a couple years, getting more tenure, getting more experience, all that kind of stuff. He's been a really, really good offensive mind. I think he's great at the offensive coordinator spot. But look at him, even as a head coach at Tennessee, USC. Straight up had 2 losing seasons and got fired. Now at Ole Miss, competitive, putting together some really, really good offenses, but also straight up abysmal defenses. And so until he shows me that as a head coach he can go, and he doesn't have to show me, but until he proves that as a head coach he can go make the defensive hires necessary to put a competitive, solid defense on the field that complements his offense, I don't know why people are begging for Lane Kiffin to coach their football teams. And that's not because I think he's a bad coach, but it's because I think there's things that he has to get better at to get those A-tier jobs or S-tier jobs. And I don't think he's there yet. I think he's a great offensive coordinator. Anybody would be lucky to have him as an OC. But head coach, man, I don't see that. What are your thoughts? Because I know you were really –
I go ahead.
I know you really wanted to see him at Alabama, but that's just my perspective. So where do you disagree, or do you disagree?
No, I don't. Like, when you go into a game against Ole Miss, it's can you outscore them?
Yeah.
Because the offense is going to put up 40 to 50 points, and that's just going to happen. But their defense is also going to give up 40 to 50 points any day of the week. So I like that point. I haven't thought about it like that. I kind of just thought about it as young as he is and where he's been successful and in what roles he's been successful. And he's a damn good OC. I think he's a top 3 OC in the country.
Won't argue with that.
That's not like the head coach needs to be good on both sides of the ball.
Or at least prove that he can make the hires necessary. Just take his hands off.
Yeah. Like he ain't got to, I like it. I really like what you said. And until he can hopefully get somebody at Ole Miss to get him, I think they'll be in the so I think they'll be in the playoff this year, and then how he performs in the playoff, that'll be the telltale. Like if he can get to the national championship, I think that means he's improved. That means he's put the guys in the right spots. He's recruited well. He's put coaches where he need to be. But until that, I think he has a little bit to prove as well. Not as a OC, but as a program engulfing head coach.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that entirely. What else? We've talked about several head coaching hires. Mike Elko at Texas A&M. They're actually killing it in the portal right now and in recruiting. Lost a couple guys just to some other SEC schools in the recruiting race, but looks like he's got his feet under him now. Where do you see A&M in the next, maybe not 2024, next 2-3 years, especially with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC?
old rivalry that's brought back between Texas and Texas A&M, that their program trajectory will be on a complete like linear correlation. Like if Texas wins that game, their program will continue to trend upward. If A&M breaks off a couple wins in that rivalry, they'll be back to above Texas. I think they have a completely correlated dependency on that game.
Yeah, that's a big recruiting game too.
Yeah, I mean they'll each have a ton. All their 5 stars that are already committed, they'll be at that game, and I wouldn't be surprised if a couple flip depending on the result. Because chances are, if you hold a Texas offer and you're from Texas, you also hold an A&M offer. So I think they'll be a competitive team, but I think their season, kind of like how those rivalries, those in-state rivalries, whether their season is a win or a loss, all depends on their in-state rivalry game. So I think their season will depend on that game as well.
Yeah, I just look at Mike Elko. I look at the and by the way, Texas A&M's athletic director just got hired at Ohio State, so that's a big thing as well. But I look at Mike Elko and I see what he did at Duke, and he took Duke, a straight basketball school, to incredibly competitive in the ACC, beating Clemson in week 1. I think he's a really, really, really good head coach, and if he can find ways to steal recruits from Texas, and I don't think he's going to compete much with Baylor. I don't think he's going to have to compete much with Baylor, the Texas Techs, and those kind of schools. But if he can find ways to steal recruits from Texas and Oklahoma and LSU, Texas A&M is going to be in a really, really good position because they've got all the tools within that program to be elite. And he's a guy that could do it. I don't think he's a top 3, top 5, maybe even coach in the SEC right now, but it's not a shot at him. It's just they got some really good coaches in the SEC. You go Kirby Smart, you go Brian Kelly, you go even Josh Heupel, you go Kalen DeBoer, Shane Beamer. Like these guys are really, really good coaches. So if he can find ways to steal recruits from there, I think they're going to be okay. That's just, to me, that's the thing to watch. Can he recruit Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma? And if he can, A&M's going to be really, really good. Just as competitive as Texas, in my opinion. So,
agree.
We'll see where that plays out. You got anything else today for this one?
No, not much. Now it's just going to be got to keep the pulse on the transfer portal and coaching carousel for the slowest 7 months of the year until college football's back.
Yeah, not 7 months. Couple months. We'll get spring ball, and then we'll get a new transfer portal window, and then before we know it, we'll be back in fall camp. So. We'll keep you all up to date on Jim Harbaugh, what's going on at Michigan, and if he leaves, who takes over that spot, because that's just going to be another domino to fall and other coaching jobs will open up. So we'll be on that, as well as the transfer portal, as Alabama and Washington and Arizona, for that matter, have players transfer out. So we'll be on that. Thank you all for joining in. We will see you all Sunday night.